Good evening, Learning Journey. Welcome to another Healing Journey broadcast. We're so glad to be with you this evening. Every week, we try to bring you something different to support you on this journey. Remember, I've been there, so I know what you're going through. It's important for me to help you along the journey. This evening, we have two special guests with us. First, we have John Brown. John is one of the board members for Our Lessons Learned. He's also a retired Air Force officer. And I shouldn't say retired because he's still working with the youth and helping them and teaching. And I'll let him tell you about himself. And then we have Dr. Reverend Pastor Kenneth Chrisman, who is a pastor. And tonight we want to hear from his perspective. How can he support the loved ones of the incarcerated? You know, when something happens, quickly people call the pastor, they call the church. And it's important. So, from his perspective, how does he support you? Also, with pastors, they are clergy. So they're allowed to go into the prisons and get into the hospitals and places that the average person can't go in just because of his credentials. So we're going to get into that shortly. Again, I welcome you. And tonight, after we finish with our special guest, I want to go over a few things to help you if you're struggling with depression. That is the biggest thing, anxiety and depression. But depression can set in so fast, and that comes from your thoughts, that negative thought that you input right here. So we're going to go over a few techniques for that. Remember, invite someone. If you know someone that is going through this journey, bring them along with you. We're on it together. 2 weeks ago, I was in that line and I went to see my son for Mother's Day that weekend. It was hard. It was very hard. I didn't sleep that night because I was in anticipation of the next day seeing my son. So those are the things that I have to go through. And I'm just like you. I'm going through this journey with you. So we're on it together. Jab, would you like to say hello this evening and tell them a little bit about what you do?
Hello, my name is Jab Brown. I am retired Air Force, but I have the pleasure of working a lot with the young people in the community. Perhaps one of the best things that I have going is that even though I taught school for about 13 years, junior ROTC, they still call me. They still want to know my opinion. They still ask for my advice. They want me to come to their weddings. They want me to come to the births. I mean, it's just amazing. It just when they trust the adults, they tend to want you to be there for them all the time. And I have the pleasure and privilege of doing that for a lot of young people. So uh, that's just a part of me. I've always been young people, and I thank you for allowing me to be here. And I pray that Leothel feels better because she would love to have been here.
Yes, yes. Leah's not with us tonight, but Lynn and Lee will be back the next 2 weeks. And Lee is supporting us this evening, but she just could not be on. Uh, Dr. K, we're going to call him Dr. K tonight. Dr. K, would you like to say hello and, tell them about you and what you do? And I'm just going to start off with a little bit about you. You're a father, you're a pastor, you're a community leader, you're also a mediator. You wear many hats. And in your community, being a pastor, I know it has many, many, many responsibilities. You're also the ombudsman at Purdue University, where you work on diversity and inclusion and things of that nature. And you can talk more about it. But as a pastor, you're constantly supporting people. And we know when things happen, usually the pastor is the one they're going to call and they will seek you. It has no time. It could be 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I want you to just talk about your journey in supporting the loved ones of the incarcerated and maybe your visits with the incarcerated and how you help the loved ones.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Lynn. And Jab, I want to be like you when I grow up and get retired. So I'm on that path. Thank you, though. And I think one of the primary things is preparation. In any ministry, whether it's prison ministry, jail ministry, ministry to the sick and shut in, the on site ministry, whatever it is, everything starts with prayer and a foundation. And if you're not prayed up, then you're not prepared to do or be what people need you to be. Prayer also brings you the reality of what you're able to do and what you're limited in. And so, one of the things I tell a lot of pastors in training is when you move into a town, when you move into a municipality, make sure you go to the county jail and you go to the city access points or the prisons around you and get yourself a credential to be able to go in and engage persons who need the help. Because it's one thing to pray from the outside, but generally there's an opportunity to get on the inside as a faith leader. And so access to prayer, access to God, meaning that, and then access to your people and being available is the most critical thing. And you're right, Lynn. We don't always get the first call when somebody's born, but when somebody dies, we get the call. When somebody gets in trouble, we get the call. And it doesn't matter what day. So think of visiting, sharing, engaging, and helping as being accessible, being prayerful, and being present. And I think those are the most important things. And then preparation undergirds all of that. And then we can talk about different facets. But if you can't get access to the people who need the help, and also to be able to go into their family situations, then you're not ready to help. And so being prepared is critically important. And quite honestly, the last thing I'll say is a lot of things are not in a book. It takes practical, lived experience. And so being proactive and having ministries where you're listening to your congregation, you're asking them before a crisis comes up, uh, what kinds of things do you need? What kinds of situations do you have going on in your family? To be prepared as you can. And Jab, I know you would say this in the military. Well, you got to be trained, you got to be prepared, or you can't fight the battle.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you a question, Dr. K. You talked about being accessible. And being a preacher's daughter, people would always call late. And my father had a rule that nobody called that house after a certain time because he would pick up the phone and he would say, "Who is this? And why are you calling?" And my daughter, you don't call a young lady this time of night. So when the phone used to ring late at night, I would be praying, "Lord, I pray that wasn't for me because I'm going to get in trouble." But it was a church member or it was somebody that knew about my father and needed his assistance. My father did a lot of work in the prison and in the jail uh, system in Richmond, Virginia, and in New York. Let me ask you a question. How do you handle when a non-member calls you for assistance? Are you accessible? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a huge question because number one, and praise to God and honor to Dr. Kelly, who is an incredible pastor extraordinaire. Things were different when Dr. Kelly was pastoring, meaning that it was usually a landline and then probably a cell phone toward the latter years of his ministry. But now folk can get to us, whether it's GPS, OPS, whatever you want.
So true.
And so one of the things, quite honestly, is keeping someone like yourself with your skills close by. As you've always told me, you got to have good boundaries, number one. And accessibility, you have to publish when you're available, where you're available. But when somebody calls that's outside of that particular realm, I do a couple things. I've already studied the local resources that are available. We have something here called 211, and you can call and ask any question. I keep a couple of attorneys in close by, bondsmen. So everything that I've been able to study to know that it takes at the point that you are incarcerated or you've been pulled over, all of those things, I've studied that. And quite honestly, I think there are gaps. Some pastors are good at this, some are not. But I've done everything I can to be prepared to understand police procedures, go through training. I run a program formerly that did what we call police stops. But when I get calls from people who I don't know, I'm prepared to do, I think, what you would call land intake. Who are you? What's your situation? How do you identify that I can best help you? And then allow some time and space, because I had a man tell me this one time that I worked for. We may not control the clock, but we do control our response. And so we can't always control when people call us, but arcing people down and letting them know that nothing happens all of a sudden. This evolved, it happened. But last thing is good boundaries. And then number two is be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do something for one person or one family and then tell somebody else no.
Oh,
And the last thing I would say is have some policies around, because everything doesn't work at every church for every pastor. But have a process and a protocol and follow it, stick to it.
Okay. I'm asking you that because there's so many different ways that pastors handle things. I had a friend that transitioned on to glory, and the funeral, the pastor did not allow the funeral to be there because of the fact the person wasn't a member, but the family was. So I just wanted to know how you react when, someone who is not a member but may know of you or of your church. Do you still, uh treat that person, as you said, consistency? I'm going to treat them as if they were a member, because that is also an opportunity to maybe grab them and pull them into the fold where they may need to be.
Well,
So,
that's why you asked that question. Are they affiliated with the church or what have you? Because
yes.
I may just end up calling their pastor and working with he or she. But at the end of the day, yeah, you're exactly right.
Another thing that I want to ask, and I'm going to let Jab ask some questions, but when this happens, the immediate response to some people is they're angry with God.
mm,
Why did you let this happen? And they're going through some of the grief. They're trying to bargain with God. They're angry. They're in denial. And, they've given up. They're angry. They lose their faith. How do you, from a pastor's perspective, and supporting them, and this is like the worst time that they feel in their life, and I'll tell you, it was the worst time in my life. I had never gone through that before. So how do you support them when their faith may be lacking?
Is that for me?
Yes, how do you
Yeah.
support them when they feel
Right.
like giving up on God?
Well, one of the things I don't do is just to throw Jesus in their face.
Okay.
I think it's important to be intuitive. I think it's important to ask questions and to discover from that person where they are in that spiritual walk, or they may not know. And so then begin to walk through um, asking them about their faith, and is it strong? Is it weak? How do they define it? And then to begin to use their words with them. But you're absolutely right. You have to know who a person is and what they need. And quite honestly, when people are upset, when they're hurting, when they're against the wall, they may not want to hear about church, and they may not want to hear from
Exactly.
the pastor. What most people tell me is, and they don't tell me in the moment, generally, they tell me afterwards. And that is, you know what? I really appreciate you were real. You didn't
Mhm.
judge me. You didn't criticize me.
Mhm.
And you didn't come at me with a bunch of colloquial language that just sounded like something that nobody understood. And I code switch with people too. A lot of times, the young people say, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I will use some of that tone and inflection with them to build some affinity. But each person and each situation is uniquely its own. And so you have to be very self aware as a provider, as a supporter, and to remember that you can't just get people from where they are to the altar. You may have to walk with them in that direction to even get to the building. And Christ is not in the building, Christ is in your heart. And it's really amazing how people find out that what they're looking for in a building is actually inside of them.
Exactly. Exactly. That's so true. Um, and learning journey, if you're out there, please feel free to type in the questions so we can answer them. And one last question, Jab, for Dr. K, and then how do you feel about your son? Put it like this: my son left to go to college, football scholarship, academic scholarship, and then this happened. How do you feel about your son leaving the home front, going to college, being enmeshed with other kids and different things? How do you feel about that?
It's pretty surreal because I'm a higher ed practitioner as well.
Mhm.
And so we just went to his orientation or registration. I knew all the questions, but I stepped back and I allowed him to be empowered. But I got to be honest with you, when I watched the different people walking around, some of the young ladies smiled at him, thought he was a very handsome young man, other people engaging him, a lot of people hearing that he's got a really good football reputation and what have you. I have to be honest with you, BJ's story was with me. And we talk about BJ a lot and never physically met BJ, but his story is bigger than him. And
Thank
and
you.
so we do it in a very, very positive way because in the brief conversations, BJ has said to me, these are the things you want to look for. These are the things you want to do. And BJ's the one that actually said to me, he's going to be okay, man. He's going to be okay. He's going to make it and he's going to do all right. So again, it doesn't come from what I know and how smart I am, but what does it feel like? It feels good to be ahead of a situation. But at the end of the day, I feel vulnerable because I don't know what, I know the good's going to happen, but he's going to have some moments. And but he just left a few minutes ago and we had the talk again. What do you
Okay.
do when you stop? How do you operate? And I actually copied off things from our website here with OLL, and I made a little card, and he keeps it in his car with him.
Wonderful. John, take
Well,
it away.
awesome. And one of the things that as you were talking, Doc, was you model the behavior for your son.
Mhm.
Mothers model their behavior so that their daughters could know how to be. One
Yes.
of the most interesting things that I dealt with was a few years ago. Leela, my wife, and I we were at lunch, I believe it was, and one of our grandsons, he said, "When I get to jail, what I'm going to do is," and we were like,
When he gets to jail.
"Wait a minute, what makes you think you have to go to jail?" And so it started, of course, a dialogue as to what what we are about and how we go about doing the right thing, so that jail doesn't become a part of the scheme of things. And
Mhm.
I'm blessed, but this time, two of the three are planning to become ministers. But uh, Dr. Ken, I just wonder when you think about modeling behavior for both the men in your church, how do y'all go about doing that? Is that y'all deal with?
You say, and you cut out just a little bit. You
Yeah,
said,
you're breaking up just a little bit, Jab.
I was just wondering
That's
how do you go about modeling a positive behavior for your young people to make sure that prison or jail is not a part of their life.
"Oh wow, that's huge." I mean, when it's for my sons in particular, it's living right and doing right, and showing them not only my strength but my vulnerability.
Oh,
When I make mistakes, I say, hey, I'm not going to say, don't do as I say, do as I do, or do what have you. But here's what dad was thinking when he did that. And so we talk, we dialogue. Not everybody has those kinds of relationships. So it becomes that. But one of the things that I've found with churches is they teach people how to be religious and how to get excited off the hoop and the homily, but they fail to ask critical questions and critically think. And I've been reading about this, and I'll just give you a quick snippet, and that is, what's our responsibility? How should we engage? What are the methods we should use? And what kind of programs? And so when you say, how do you model? We model by being a good Christian. I mean, I don't have the blueprint, Christ did.
Yes.
And but you know, Lynn can tell you we've had some funny conversations about being PKs and living in the parsonage and everything. You know, preachers aren't the best people either. And preachers' families have challenges too.
Right.
But what we can do is be honorable, be honest, have integrity, and be aware of our good points and our bad points, and then to use best practices. And quite honestly, the schools are helpful.
Right.
Not all schools are great, but schools are just like when you get out of school, you go to the military. There's a discipline, there's a time, there's accountability, and that you put in is what you get out. So I don't know that I model the behavior as an actor as much as I'm still a student and I'm a pastor and I'm trying to live right. And I think my kids see that. And other kids gravitate toward me, even though I'm kind of old and have gray hair now. They they still see me as kind of cool, and they want to talk to me and ask me, "How do you do that?" or "Where did you get those gifts?" or "What can I do to be better?"
Awesome. Well, I got a little more specific question. What's the follow-up procedure when an ex-offender approaches your church for help? Do they reveal what their charges were?
Do they what?
Have to tell you what their charges were?
They don't have to, but again, it's having a skill set and being inquisitive and knowing how to talk to people. People generally, uh, ex-offenders, if you will, or persons who have been incarcerated, want to tell you. They want to get it off their chest. They want you to know because they also want to know how you're going to respond and how you're going to react. As my young men always tell, not that there have been young ladies, but are you cool? And so they don't have to tell me, but I for sure will provide a dialogue and a discussion, and I will ask. Now, the other thing is when new people come to the church and they want to volunteer, so they want to help with young people, uh, our church requires a background check for engagement. And so we let people know that we have a system and we tell them that there won't be penalties for XYZ unless they're on the sex offender registry. And then I'm resourceful. So if I have your name and number, I can get information and be helpful. And, you know, I've actually done that with people
Really?
and able to help them and make them aware of things that I say it's public record, you know. But no, ex-offenders coming to the church are very welcome,
Excellent.
and more often than not, they find that they found a place. But I'm very honest too about what we can and what we can't do. I hope that answers your question. The door is open. You know, I got a young man in my church right now who can. I need flooring done, electrical work. He does everything, and he spent 22 years in prison.
Wow.
And he got out of school. He started a roofing job. The roofing job was at the university I work at. And some people started saying some Trumpian kind of things to him. And he basically told them, you don't want to fool with this because you can really get hurt. And the guys went back to the administration and said he threatened to hurt them. The police ran him. All this stuff brewed up. I got wind of it. I went to the PD, got in the middle of the situation, and used my authority to say, hey, that's not who this is.
Right.
I can vouch for him. Do you have probable cause? But again, Jab, you know, like it is in the military, if you don't, you got to know your craft and you have to know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And I think that's part of the reason why we have OLL, because so many people think they know, but they don't know until they get in the middle of that situation.
Amen.
It's real.
It's
It's
real.
real. And you know, you touched on something so poignant. We're here to support the loved one so they can support their loved one who is incarcerated, because it's a system. It is a family system that is important. So we support them. I everything that you said, you know, I look at my family who supports me because I'm not on the journey. They are too, because we're family. So supporting one another, John, as you said, is very important. And you also said something that my father used to always do. My father didn't judge, he welcomed the ex offenders into the church. And not only did he welcome, he gave them a job.
All right.
He gave them a job because nobody else will. They've done their time, and dad would have them do different jobs and things of that nature. And he loved on them and helped them turn their life around. So, there could be some parents or loved ones on here now whose loved one might be getting ready to get out. And usually, when they're getting ready to get out, they will go into a work release program so they can transition more easily, but back into the community and back into the everyday life. This is a great time to ask the pastor, hey, pastor, I need your support. Can you work with my son or my daughter? Can you work with my loved one? And I'm sure, Dr. K, you've had things like that, because I know my father did, and he always reached out. He said, the church is the hospital. We're here to help. We're here to transform lives and to help them. This is also a chance to maybe introduce them to Christ and to save that soul. So I don't know how you do it. You said that you do a background check and things of that nature. And also some people in the church, they turn around and they judge a lot. Look what she got on, look what he's got on. Maximize on the opportunity that person walk through the doors of the church. Love on them, help them along, support them. And those are the things that are important.
It's funny because thank you, yes, and I was telling my church the last 2 weeks about OLL, and then this week about coming on tonight. And I continue to find that being aware and talking about situations before they develop, and how we're going to be welcoming, and how we have to work and have the right attitudes. For a lot of us, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, I've just never met a person who just was determined to go out and do bad. Everybody has a story. And so I try to provide a lot of time for people to tell their story. Now, old folk call it testimony.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like we're doing tonight, prompter questions to just say, hey, let's talk about this subject or what have you. And here's a saying that I have with my church and what have you: events are not programs, and programs are not effective unless they're building sustainable relationships,
Mm-hmm.
so that people can come to you. And that's what Dr. Kelly did. Jab, I know that's what you're doing, but you
Mm-hmm.
young people,
Yes,
I
John.
heard you say in the introduction, was I established a relationship. And even after I got done helping them, they're still calling me the different.
Mm-hmm.
That's relationship, brother.
That is relationship.
Yeah. And Jab, you get to really touch them at their youth, right before they finish school. And that is so important, in the high school, and that is so important because you are really touching their lives. And then Dr. K, you touch them when they get into the college sector. So, you two gentlemen are mentors for the youth, and that is important. And the loved ones, I'm sure that they are so glad to hear how you two are effective out there making a difference in the community. And especially in this day and age, it is so welcomed and needed. So I thank you both for what you do in the community. I have some questions here that both of you can answer. It's an opportunity to introduce Jesus in the midst of their confusion, grief, and chaos. You have to be upfront, empathetic, and honest with them. This also shows the God in you with those who are suffering. The next one: real Christians get in the trenches, yes, they do, and model after Christ. It's not easy, but remember that somebody is watching. It may not be in your house, but somebody is watching how you handle life, real life. Yes, they are. I kid you not. This is the hardest thing that I've ever had to go through, but it's real life and I'm living it.
Yeah.
And I'm in the trenches with the other ones as they're living it, because that is my purpose. That's what I'm supposed to do. There are times when I don't have it all together and I will cry. It gets the best of me. So I'm just like you out there. I'm helping you along the way. And that's what I want you to realize: you're not alone. We're on this journey together. I might be a year or two in front of you, but I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to be with you. Just like God says, I will be with you always, yesterday, today, and forever. Another question. Dr. K, thank you so much for being Dr. K's Corner. The church is a very important ministry to the inmate and ex offender. Being prepared, consistent, and non judgmental is important for results that are successful. Sometimes our loved ones just end up in the wrong place at the wrong time and end up an inmate. That was my son. Wrong place, wrong time. Hand of one is hand of all. Absolutely know your craft. Yes. Jab, you know your craft. Dr. K, you know yours. The world, so to speak, claim we give ex-offenders a second chance, but the reality is that their application goes to the bottom of the file.
Wow.
Yes, it does. They're
Wow.
not allowed to vote. They're not allowed to get a job. Think about all of those things. The system is set up that way, so it's a revolving door. We're here, so hopefully we can bring change, and that system needs an overhaul. Very good and effective information. You can't lead the people if you don't love the people. Amen to that. You can't save the people if you don't serve the people. Cornell West. Now, those are some very important things to live by. You know, you have to love the people in order to serve the people.
Right.
And that is very important. Gentlemen, would you like to comment on all of those, all of those comments about knowing your craft, loving the people, serving the people in order to help them? I'll let each one of you comment on those.
Dr. K, go ahead, sir.
I was actually, here's what's brewing in my mind. And Jab, if you don't mind going, because I wanted to ask you along with those, how did the military help you be prepared to help these young people? What things did you take away from your training that's helped you to be effective? Because I'm going to call it your ministry. And I think that's what every one of the persons who wrote here said. Again, being prepared. If you don't mind, how did your experiences prepare you to be able to be helpful?
I've been blessed uh, throughout every assignment. Uh, we were involved in the church capacity, and once you're involved in the church, as you go from being in the United States to even being overseas, you realize that everybody's looking for something. And one of the things that draws us all together was our Christianity. And so, what I was able to do, particularly as an officer, was to allow for the people uh, ask questions and have projects and do things that will enable them to be better people. And oftentimes, because of the rank, they would listen. You know, yes, there are times when you don't have something to give them a reason to at least listen to the beginning, they won't. But because of God putting me where He did, it allowed for me to speak to them and start choirs and start churches when they weren't, and to be able to have programs to support those people, particularly young airmen who didn't have much. Um, it's something you mentioned earlier, Dr. K, about consistent. That is what everybody, the young people in the
Yeah.
military side, they're looking for someone who's going to be consistent in their caring. You know, caring is a big word, both
Yes, it
for
is.
in the military, being in church, and being in business. If you can't show that you care, then people are not going to pay much attention very long. So God has allowed me to be able to show people the different things that He's blessed me with in the way of talent and projects and programs, and it worked. And I think about that.
Outstanding,
Amen.
outstanding. And Lynn, my quick response to all that has been said, and thank you, Jab, is that the church is not in a building. It's not the ecclesia. The church is in our hearts. And where we move and we go and we do, we take, as the old hymn says, take the name of Jesus with you. There are people who are hurting, sitting by the highway. People
Yes,
are
Yes.
walking and smiling and depressed inside. And if we will practice what I just heard Jab say, and that is empathetic leadership, just have a heart for people, have a love for Christ, be open and be available, and make sure that if you have issues, and we all have them, that you're aware of them and know where you can minister and where you're not. Sometimes we're so vulnerable that we get scared and we alienate people. It's okay to say to people, this is really difficult for me. Actually, I've been incarcerated myself, or my son or my daughter's incarcerated. But let me share with some others if you'll allow me. That's leadership, and influence them to get help. And then the last thing is, Lynn, I mean, we've been working on this journey. I don't try to minister Jab outside of my gift. I am not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. I'm not an attorney, and I'm not a judge. I'm a pastor, and I can pray, and I can lead, and I can influence. But when it comes to shouldering that burden, a lot of times it's getting people the right help,
absolutely.
not just being the help.
Hmm.
And
Amen.
that is so important, right, Jab?
Absolutely. I know that through it all, being that servant leader, being that empathetic leader that you talked about. Sometimes we forget the words; they don't come to us, and you got brothers like to come along and put the meaning to it. We know that folks are watching us. They want to see something that will guide them in the right places. And so many times, even as Lynn was talking about some of the young people that I did ROTC, there are people who came to class with the idea that they were in a dark place and they weren't sure if they wanted to go on. Yet they walked into the classroom, they realized that people cared about them and they changed their mind. And they let me know through either a note or something to say, hey, I'm glad to be here. And I tell you, it really touches you. It means a lot when people can feel that empathy, can feel that care.
And it's important that they know that there's someone out there that can help them. Someone just put on, yes, get the right help. Well, from our lessons learned, Lee and Lynn, this is what we do. If that loved one has been incarcerated, you don't know what to do, you call us right away. We have the prayer. Then the mental health to get you from being so traumatized and bring the anxiety down. Then we will also hook you up with a bail bondsman if a bail has been set, or attorneys if you're looking for legal help. This is something that I didn't have and Lee didn't have. We were just in a debacle. We didn't know what to do or where to go. And we never want another loved one to feel that way. For me, I was by myself. Then the next day, my brother, I talked to my brother, and what a brother. He came immediately. How are we going to pay for the lawyer? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? And, we want at OLL, we want to help you get through the process where you can process everything, because as you well know, when things happen, and Dr. K, you can attest to this, that people who are depressed tend to think very negatively about themselves, about their future, and about the world around them, about the current situation. Your thoughts affect your behaviors and your feelings. So we want to get you out of that, letting you know there is help. You can get through this. And we want to be able to help you get through this. And that is very important. And there are a lot of things. The depression starts right here. It starts from that thought, and you put that negative spin on it. I'll never, this is the end of the world. It's not the end of all. And we have to make sure that you get the mental health. and I am a mental health counselor, and my aim is to help you through it. At that time, I was in school. So I was standing in the mirror trying to do psychotherapy on myself to get myself through it. And, I said, I never want anyone else to feel the things that I feel. So daily, when you are by yourself and you have those dark times, do something different to decrease your depression and those negative feelings. Pause, take a breath, breathe. Mindfulness, I've taught you before the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. You're taking all of that energy from your problem and placing it on something else. You're becoming mindful. Focus your attention fully on another activity. I used to go to the beach. I love the water because water was all throughout the Bible. God used water for healing, baptizing. He used it for so many different things. And I would look out on the ocean and I would cry out to him. So that was my healing place to change my focus. Relaxation techniques. Beach, that's one thing. Going to the park, walking around the mall. I would walk. I couldn't afford anything, but I would just walk and look at things. That helped me. Also, reach out to others and let them reach out to you. Do not isolate yourself. Please reach out to others. You need a support system. Make sure that you have a good friend that you can talk to, that you can call on, and that friend that doesn't mind calling you 24/7. Because when you're going through, you could wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, I need to talk. So make sure you have that type of friendship. That is important. Engage in a hobby or an interest. Get the mind active off of the focus point of that problem. Focus it on something else. Also, positive self talk. I am who God says I am. I can do what God says I can do. All things are possible if you believe. I still say those things daily. My father always said, God is in the miracle working business. He's still in the miracle working business. And you have to really realize that all things work together for good. And I still hold on to those things in Proverbs 3:5. Lean not to your own understanding, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. And then the last one is Romans 12:2. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. So you will know his good and perfect will for your life. Another one says, dance in the rain, sing with the wind, sit by a lake. Yes. And I always like to say, leaves on a stream. Pour out those issues and put it on top of a leaf and just watch the leaf go down the stream. That will relieve you and alleviate some of those thoughts. And then, yes, Lynn, helping those who are depressed by addressing their mental health issues is so important. Yes, it is. Because at that time, there are a lot of people who are traumatized. And I was traumatized. So I want to help people through that. So we do have a nonprofit. Please visit our website, and that is ourlessonslearned.org. And also, you can make a donation. We are also having a caregivers care for the caregivers of the incarcerated. We're having that on Saturday, July the 8th. And if you can come, maybe you want to make a donation so somebody else can get, a massage or a facial or, some hair braiding, some cornrows or things of that nature. We will have Spill the Tea with me. That is going to be a mental health roundtable. If you have some issues that you want to talk about incarceration and your loved one, you can spill the tea with me, and we'll have some other mental health counselors there. So those are a few things that we're doing in the community. And this is a community-based program, and God gave us the vision. So we just thank him. Are there any comments, Dr. K and Jab, that you'd like to make, supporting the caregivers, the loved ones out there?
Dr. King?
I'm just going to end with what I started with, and that is to be prayed up and to pray. Nothing happens all of a sudden. But if you have a relationship with God and you stay close to Him, it doesn't matter what happens. It matters that we know Him and He is able to carry us through. And, we've said a lot about the person who offended, but for those families in particular, as you've asked as well, pray with them, spend time with them, talk to one another, because spending time, as you said, Lynn, with one another, when we're truly God-centric and prayed up, we're spending time with God.
Amen. Amen.
Well, I just want to say how much I enjoyed this discussion. And I just say, Lynn, you and Lee have done an awesome job of bringing together OLL, and it means so much to the community.
Thank you.
Know that people are getting something out of it, and I know that one of the questions I was going to have had to do with MVP. MVP is not the most valuable person, but to the incarcerated, it is mail. It is getting a visitor. It's
Yes.
getting packages. That's MVP for the incarcerated, and we need to keep those kinds of things in mind. And OLL is a venue. It is a vehicle for getting the information out and helping people who need some help when they don't know what to do. And Lynn, you've articulated it well. Y'all do a great job. And Pastor, thank you for all that you've said and coming and maybe one of these days get you back.
I look forward to it.
There is one question that I want to answer here. And someone put on here, Lynn, what is one lesson learned that you would share with parents that are getting ready to turn their sons and daughters out into the world? Don't give up your Miranda rights. I always told my son, and the truth will set you free. We live in a different world. Please do not talk without legal representation. Be very careful that you tell your sons and daughters that over and over and over again. If something happens, do not talk until you have a lawyer present. And make sure you tell them that. Take the fifth, Miranda rights, whatever you need to tell them. Do not talk. And on our website, we have the 4Ds that are on there. And I think, Dr. K, you were smart in putting those 4Ks on there. Do you remember? It was don't talk, don't consent to a search. What was the other? I can't remember the other two, but if you visit our website, you will see things like that on there. And that is very, very important that you do that. So your sons and daughters right now, Dr. K, you have a son going away. Make sure he knows about Miranda rights. Make sure he knows he doesn't have to give those up. Make sure that he has legal representation. And we plan on going to the colleges and talking with the parents who are enrolling their children in those colleges to, be a part of this. Again, we're in the grassroots. Leah and I don't know what we're doing. We are managing it as we go along. We just know that we have a need to help others. So, work with us as we work with you. Help us as we help them and we help you. And the answers are not on social media, as someone put, and they're not in the outlets. Please, they're not on social media outlets. They're not in a TikTok video. Make sure that your young people know that. There are tons of challenges out there. I deal with teens all the time that have to have counseling because of the wrong information. So please make sure that you have that relationship with your teen where they can tell you things. You don't want them to call you, I've been arrested, come and get me. You don't want to hear that. You want to make sure that you tell them the right things to do. Any closing comments? If not, okay. I thank you, gentlemen, for being with the learning journey, which is a part of the healing journey. We're healing as we go along. Again, please support us as we support you. We will be back on June the 5th. And remember, depression, remember, it starts from a thought exercise and energize this right here, and we can lower that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a good evening, everybody.